Putin was once again briefed about yet another supposed encirclement of Ukrainian troops on several fronts at once. According to Russian media, the report was, as usual, delivered by Chief of the General Staff Gerasimov, and Peskov, as always, added some drama, claiming that, allegedly, around 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers were encircled, attention, on the Kupiansk and Krasnoarmysk sections of the front. How is that even possible? That's an open question, especially considering that in the same Donetsk region, Ukrainian forces continue to counterattack. According to OSINT analysts, Ukraine's defense forces have liberated 3 more settlements. And all this is happening against the backdrop of Putin's loud statements to Trump, claiming that the Donetsk region will be fully under control by September. Then the deadline was quietly pushed back to November. But what do we actually have in reality? Let's figure it out now. Back on August 15th, during the summit in Alaska, Putin assured Trump that the Donetsk region would be fully captured by November 2025. These details of the negotiations were revealed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The clock is ticking, but Ukraine's defense is holding firm, just as it always has. Moreover, they're counterattacking. In the region, Ukrainian defenders continue to liberate settlements step by step.
Over the past 10 days, Ukrainian forces operating in the Okharatyn sector have regained control over 2 settlements, Kucherivir and Suketsky. Thus, since August 21, 2020. The situation in this area has been stabilized. Control has been restored over 9 settlements. Another 9 have been cleared of enemy sabotage groups. In just the past 10 days, 1,756 enemy servicemen and 75 pieces of equipment have been destroyed here. Of the enemy. From a post by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Telegram.
The American administration is closely monitoring the situation on the front line in Ukraine. And it fully understands that the Kremlin's loud statements are increasingly at odds with reality. No amount of impressive reports or claims of success can hide the obvious. The Russian army has not advanced and is suffering heavy losses. Washington openly states that Putin is not achieving any strategic results there, despite all his efforts. The U.S. ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, emphasized that over the past 10 months, Russia has suffered enormous losses in personnel. And its so-called successes on the battlefield are minimal. He
is not achieving any strategic successes. He is simply continuing to fuel the bloodshed on the front line without achieving any real results. So over the past 10 months, Russia has captured territory about the size of the city of Jacksonville. Insignificant gains, insignificant territory.
The failures of the Russian Federation at the front are being closely monitored by the North Atlantic Alliance as well. NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte noted that Putin is rapidly running out of both resources and manpower. Meanwhile, support for Ukraine from its partners remains stable and is delivering real results on the battlefield. Rutte emphasized that the Pyrol program, under which European countries, NATO members, and Canada allocate funds to purchase American weapons for Ukraine, will continue. Moreover, according to him, negotiations are underway regarding possible deliveries of Tomahawk ballistic missiles to the Ukrainian armed forces.
In Ukraine, Putin is not achieving significant success on the battlefield, and even minor gains come at a high cost. Hundreds of thousands of Russians are dying because of Putin's deceptive aggression. Ukraine continues to defend itself bravely, and our support is bearing fruit. The truth is that Putin is running out of money, troops, and ideas.
Ukraine and the United States stand united. Hostilities need to be stopped right now, along the current front line. But, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy emphasizes, Putin will not agree to such a compromise. And it seems that's the case. The Kremlin continues to avoid direct proposals, talking instead about some kind of peace agreement that, according to them, should address the root causes of the war. Analysts are in agreement. The Russian dictator doesn't want peace. He wants all of Ukraine. Zelenskyy, on the other hand, has repeatedly stated that he is ready for negotiations in any format, as long as it's about a just and real peace.
For now, Russia doesn't want to end the war, and Putin doesn't want any normal meetings. Everything Putin does is just an attempt to delay new forms of pressure. We need to create a desire for negotiations in Russia, and I am ready to meet in any meaningful format. The current front line could serve as a starting point for negotiations, real negotiations. And we all need to understand that the issue of territorial integrity, just like any supposed exchange of territories, should not be a way to buy off the aggressor or a reward for any future acts of aggression in the world.
Putin assured Trump that taking over the Donetsk region was supposedly just a matter of a few months. Moreover, according to his logic, if the US really wants to stop the bloodshed, they should convince Kyiv to simply surrender Donbas. And then, supposedly, peace will come. But for more than 11 years now, the region has not yielded to the Kremlin dictator. The Russian command keeps throwing new soldiers in at a meat grinder, and all to no avail. For Putin, this region has long become an obsession, a symbol of his political and military failure. And one thing is clear, if the Kremlin manages to seize this trophy, it won't stop there. For the Russian dictator, this is not the end of the war, but just a new springboard for another round of aggression.
Handing over the remaining part of Donetsk region is disproportionately advantageous. For Russia, Donetsk region includes territory that is strategically important for Ukraine's defense and its defense industrial base, including a belt of fortresses. The main defensive line of Ukraine in the Donetsk region since 2014, which Ukraine has turned into an important logistical and defense industrial hub. Currently, Russian forces do not have the means to quickly encircle or break through the belt of fortresses, the capture of which would likely take several years at the current pace of advance. From a report by the Institute for the Study of War.
Seeing that Putin was not only weak on the front lines, but also all talk behind the scenes, Trump imposed the first sanctions against Russia's two largest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. And he simply cancelled the planned meeting with the Kremlin leader in Budapest, adding that there would be no summit with him until everything is ready. A peace deal. In Moscow, as usual, the restrictive measures were called an unfriendly act, and they claimed that these would not affect the country's economy in any way. The head of the White House responded with a smirk, saying that if Putin thinks so, he's glad and willing to wait.
I think that they will definitely have an impact there. These are large-scale sanctions, including on oil. Two of the largest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, they produce a lot of oil. And hopefully, this will push him toward reasonable behavior. In jest.
A few days after the American restrictions were imposed, Indian state companies began to suspend purchases of Russian oil. As Reuters notes, Beijing soon followed the same path.
But do you know what China is doing? I don't know. Maybe you've seen it. China is significantly cutting back on purchases of Russian oil, and India is reducing them completely. And we've already imposed sanctions. Donald Trump, President of the United States, aboard Air Force One.
In addition to the restrictions already in place, the administration of US President Donald Trump has also prepared a new package of sanctions against Russia. It could hit key sectors of the economy if Putin doesn't become more accommodating. The outcome is obvious. The Donetsk region still resists the Kremlin dictator, despite loud promises and reports from the general staff. Meanwhile, the hole in the economy is growing to a scale the Federation has never seen before. The moral of this story is simple. Don't build illusions, not in your own mind and certainly not in someone else's, because sooner or later, the whole country will have to pay the price.
Subscribe to The Gaze and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.